Safety. It's a big thing in the workshop. If you don't feel safe doing something, or you just don't feel comfortable, don't do it. You're the only person who can keep you safe. And if you don't do it, no one else can. This is a simple little thing I made for helping me know where to put the tenons. It has 3 magnets on the bottom, and it fits right on top of my tool, and I have 2 diameters here, one on the top, one on the bottom, and that's for the 2 sizes of chucks that I use. I use one-way stronghold chucks and tower jaws on them, and when I bought them there was only 2 sizes of tower jaws, so I think there's another size today, so you'd have to set it to suit your tower jaws or your chuck, whatever chuck you use. And it's simple. Basically, want a circle, want to draw a line, make a mark, whatever, that's the same diameter as this here. Now that's just a little bit small. Turn the lathe on. And even a little bigger than that. Now the outside of that line is where I want my tenon. Simple as that. We need a tenon. That diameter doesn't need to be very big. I'd say 1/8 of an inch deep is enough. And we'll clean up the corner with a little skew gouge. That's just about the right angle for my jaws. There. Pretty nice. It's nice and flat down this face. And one thing I try to do is determine where the bottom of the bowl is going to be from this. One of the things you're going to need to know is relative to something here, so I use the jaws in here, where is the bottom of the bowl going to be? So this might be a little bit large for a foot for this bowl, just a little bit. So I think that the bottom of my bowl may come just about there. That's about 3/16 from this face in. Just for my knowledge where it's going to come, because I need that when we do the coring. Okay, so we'll just clean this up. It's moved a little bit since I roughed it out, and we'll try a little more speed. About 900 we start to get a little kind of wobble. So it's probably good enough. Remember, we're just roughing this out now. So we're ready to turn the bowl around. Take the tailstock away. Drop the bowl down. Take out my driving ring here. and mount the bowl in the drawers. Now one thing I always try and do is have the end grain, find the end grain, here's the end grain. I always like to have that between the jaws, just so that we have similar grain on the jaws that are opposite one another. Don't have end grain on one and side grain on the other. We have a mixture. Just grip it so we've got it. And we'll take a little piece of wood and push it back in the jaws before we clamp it. Now, this is wet, soft, well it's maple, medium soft I guess, wood. So for safety's sake we'll keep the tail, the live center, tailstock up and the live center in there while we rough down this face. Now I cut this out before to try and get rid of the crack. Crack beat me and went down there. I've put CA glue in it and we'll carry on like that. What we want here is a flat face. Oh, that's pretty flat. That would do actually for, you know, what we're doing, roughing out. I'll take one more little cut just to smooth it. And that's going to give us a bowl that's just under 9.5 inches across. Just take the sharp edge off the corner. There. Yeah, plenty flat for what we need. We're all set to core this now. So what do we know? We know where the bottom of the outside bowl is going to be. It's going to be about 3/16 back from the edge of the jaws. We know it's 9.5 inches. When you're roughing out a bowl to dry, the rule of thumb is about 10%. So if we have a bowl that's 9.5 inches, if say it was 10 inches it would be 1 inch thick, okay? But 9.5 is about 0.95. It's almost an inch, eh? So for simplicity we'll just say it's a tight inch, right? It's only 50 thou less than an inch, and we'll mark a line around it there. So we know that we're going to cut in here now. If you're going to use a coring system, they always have curved knives. Some of them, like the one-way coring system that I use, has a pivot point and the knives pivot on the point. So you have different size knives. So you have to select which knife based on the diameter you're going to use. And you know you want the outside of that knife to just be on this diameter, so it's going to leave that thick. Now you also want the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to have to move the camera because I can't show you this like that. Just hang on a second. I'm close, but not quite there. So the jaws of the chuck are here. And remember I said it was going to be the bottom of this bowl would be 3/16 further down outside than the edge of the jaws. So I've got a square here I put on the bed of the lathe, and it comes up, and I line it up with where the bottom of the jaw, the bottom of the bowl, the outside bowl, is going to be. I've got to get a better picture. Yeah. I got it on the bed of the lathe, and I bring it back to where the bottom of this bowl will be, where I think it will be. Now on the front, oh, I need a mobile camera. I measure from that line to the outside edge, which we know is just on about an inch. So from the back of the bowl up the side, not with the dividers on an angle like this with the bowl, but holding them straight, I measure back where I want the bottom of that cutter. When it cuts in there, where do I want it to be? In here. And I put a little mark. So there, I have a little mark. And take and make that all around the bowl. I have a line around the back here that's 1 inch up from where the bottom of the bowl is going to be, and I have a line here that's 1 inch in from the edge. So the cutter that I use is going to have to go and start here and be to a depth when it gets inside here of this other line that's on the back of the bowl here. Okay, so I know where that first cut is going to be. The other piece of information I need to know, now if I know that the radius of the cutter is going to be 4 inches, for example, which it may be in this case, I line up the 4-inch mark on the scale with the line, and I look here and I've got 1 5/8, 1 11/16. So from this face I want that center point of that rotation to be out 1 5/16. No, 1 11/16, sorry. 1/2 inch 5/8. 11/16. 1 11/16. Right? So I'll write that on there. 1 11/16. Okay, so what do I know now? I know where I want the cutter to start, so I can adjust. Oh, let me put the camera back. So I've marked on this one here now 1 11/16 right here. So I know that I want the center of the pivot point of that cutter, whatever cutter I use. So if it's a 4-inch radius cutter, I want it to be back 1 11/16 from this face, and I want the edge of it to start there. So when I line up whatever system I'm using, that's what I'll do. I'll line up the edge of the cutter to hit here, and the center point, it's a 4-inch cutter, for example, will be 1 11/16 back from this face. Then when I swing it around and cut in there, it will start cutting here, and the outside edge of the 4-inch radius cutter we'll just hit this line on the back, and bingo, we'll have a 1 inch thick, basically, bowl left all the way around. Okay, so it looks like we got enough room to make at least one other bowl here. The width of the cutter I'm going to use is 5/16. So I can come back 5/16 from where this one is going to cut. That's a 1/4 inch, 5/16. Put a little mark. That's how wide my cutter's going to be. Okay. Now what that gives us, let me just mark that there, and I'll just fill that in. That's where we're going to cut here. Get that? Okay, yeah. So our cutter's going to go in there. That's a heavy 5/16, but anyway, so it probably won't be quite that wide. Now I've gone a little far. 1 inch, yeah, that's the 1 inch, and the 5/16, it won't be quite that far. I overreached. Just going to take that off. How could we possibly take it off, you wonder? I have no idea. Oh, there it's gone. Well, that's just about right where that line is there, where that edge of that is. That's more like the 5/16. There. I like that better. Yeah, okay. So the outside of the first bowl, big bowl, is here. The outside of the next bowl is here. The next bowl is 6 3/4. So that's 0.675 is 1/10 of that. What would that be in metric now? Would it be easier in metric? I got a metric scale here somewhere. I think I do. Oh yeah, here's a metric scale. So now that's outside of that bowl in metric is 170 millimeters. 170. So 1/10 of that is 17 millimeters. So 10, 15, 16, 17, 15, 16, 17. It's not metric on both edges. So the next, the inside of this bowl, is going to be there. That should be about, there's 17 millimeters. It's a little bit thick, but we'll leave it, it'll be okay. And we want, oh, I don't know what 5/16 is. Oh, we can just measure it here roughly. It's about, about a millimeter side there. Bothered old devil, isn't I? Yeah. Now, that's 5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8 millimeters, roughly 8 millimeters. So the inside edge of this is going to be 8 millimeters. We'll just go 8 millimeters. 5, 6, 7, 8. Eight millimeters. Is that 5/16? Yeah, it's 5/16. Right on. Okay. That's one bowl, two bowls. Can I get a third one out of there? I don't think it would be much good for anything, but we'll mark it out just to show you anyway. This bowl, the outside of this bowl, is 4 1/4. So we want about 0.45. So we'll say 1/2 inch for a thickness. Alright, thickness of the wall. And we want to go in 5/16 on that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16 there. So what have we got now? We've got the points where we're going to cut in from this face. And for this one, we figured out that marking where the outside of the bottom of this bowl, where this cutter is going to be here when it cuts here, the outside edge we want on this line, which we mark from the back using the square and the dividers by measuring this angle here, this distance here, and the distance, keeping them square to the edge of the ruler to that where I put a line around here. And now, so we want to know where the next one is. So we set the dividers to where that outside of that next one is, where the edge of the cutter will be. We set the dividers there. And so from the bottom of our bowl, we want this to be the same. There. I'm setting this up by eye. And we need a way for these lines to know how to position the pivot point at the center of the circle. Okay. There. Once we have the line where we know where we want the cutter to end up, so that we get an even thickness bowl, we need to know we're going to be using a 4-inch cutter again, where, so if I line the 4-inch up with that line here, line the 4-inch up exactly on this line here, in line with that line, I know that I want 1, 2, 2 3/4 and 1/16. 2 3/4 and 1/16. That's 13/16. 2 13/16. From here out is where the pivot point will be, so that the 4-inch cutter will cut the outside edge of it to this line. So 2 inches and 13/16. So I'm going to write that on here. 2 inches and 13/16. Okay, that's how. Oh dear, not my scale on the floor. My square on the floor. Good job, we got a pile of chips there. Okay. So we do the same thing for the next one, and we know we don't have a bowl there, but at least we'll be cutting the inside of this bowl. So I think we'll get 3 bowls out of this little blank. It's only a little tiny thing. There. So what do we know? we know, whoops, there, we know it's that distance there to give us. So we want the same distance from where the bottom of the bowl is, bottom of the outside bowl, in into here. It's just there. Not in the width of the cutter, I don't think. Okay, I'll mark it. So for this line, we'll start with the edge of the cutter on that line, and we want it to go in to this depth here that I've just marked. So we'll be using the 4-inch cutter again. So if we line the 4-inch up with this line I've just drawn, it tells us that the pivot point is going to be 3 and 5/8 and a 16th. So it's 3 and 11/16 out, right? 3 and 11/16 out. So for this one, it's 3 and 11/16. That's where my pivot point will be. So you can see, if we're using a 4-inch cutter, it's only going to go in 5/16, so it's just a little skim there, hardly anything. Okay, I hope that's clear. It is a simple way, if you think about it, to lay out for coring. And the advantage to me is, if I do this, I can start by coring the small one first, pop that out. I don't have to reset it up or anything. I can take the next one then the next one. Now, for this experiment, I'm going to use a Bowlsaver to core this bowl out. And the only reason I'm using a Bowlsaver, it's not mine, it belongs to our club, and they recently bought new tips to be brazed onto the ends of the cutter arms, and when I got round to doing that, I thought that the tips that were in it would still be good if they were sharpened. So this is a test really to see if the sharpened tips work okay, and if they do, I don't have to put the other tips, braze the other tips on yet, not till they've worn a bit more. Bowlsaver people in their little pamphlets say you should be able to core 500 bowls. Well, I don't think our club one has done 500 bowls yet. So here's the Bowlsaver. You can see, whoops, just lock these up. Now I set the collar, whoops, there. There's a collar on here. You have to set that so the cutter is at center height. So I've done that. I set the collar so that's at center height. And remember I was talking about pivot point? Well, here's the pivot point, and I put a little center punch, just a little mark in the center right here, so we can measure out for the center of the radius. And by moving the banjo in and out, we can change where this will come in contact with the edge of the bowl. So my intent is to do the inside one first here, and for that inside one, we want 3 11/16 back from this face to the center point. 3 11/16. So it's got to come back. Three and 11/16 will be there. Just lock that down for me. And we have to come this way quite a bit. You can see it's just going to be a little scoop than it does here. So we want 3 11/16. That's what it is now, pretty well. And we want the edge to just be there. Come back a touch. Yeah, so that corner of the cutter here is just coming in on this line, and this is a 4-inch radius. If I put the 4-inch on the center of the dot there, you can see it lines right up with the edge here. And so we want 3 11/16 out. Exactly that, 3 11/16. So that's where it needs to be. It will come and it will cut here, and when it finishes cutting it will be lined up with this line here, and it will just take a little scoop out the middle. Now, the way that the Bowlsaver adds a little rigidity to this is by using the tail stop, and then lock that down. Okay, so we're just skimming there. We're 3 11/16 to the center, so we should all be set up good to go. My advice is at this point you'll check how tight your chuck is, because being soft and wet wood, I'll show you a blooper after I've cut this one out where I didn't do that, and the results are that the bowl came out. Anyways, we're all set to do this. We're all lined up, ready to go. Turn the speed down. Now, if we can get to about 500 or 600, 660, 660, we're right in the middle. Because there is slop in this, I tend to hold it up. I found holding it up is better than trying to hold it down, because when you're holding it down, it wins and slaps it up. So that noise. Let's turn the speed down a touch. Oh, that seems to be a little low, eh? Oh, we'll reset that. Don't know what happened there. good. Okay, let's reset that colour. I must have said it wrong before. Thought I was right, but okay. See if it'll clean up that middle. Okay, so that was the first bowl. I don't know where it went, but it really wasn't wasn't a bowl. Now we need to set it for the next one. Okay, so we loosen this. Oh, first I'm going to tighten in the tailstock and kind of lock it together. There. Loosen up the tailstock. Loosen this screw so it can move around. Loosen this so it can pivot, what have you. Now the next one, we're going to stick with the same cutter for all of these bowls. The Bowlsaver people, manufacturers of the manufacturers of this Bowlsaver, say use the small cutter for diameters 5" to 8½. So that covers all of these. So next one is going to be this one that we cut, and that's 2 3/16 to here. So we know we need to go in some. So we're at about 2 3/16. 2 13/16. 2 13/16. Well, I can't believe it. 2 5/8. Oh no, it's got to come back a bit. Yeah, I was right on it at the start there. 3/16. 13 3/16 less than 3 inches. Yeah. Come in a touch there, and has to go across. So that corner is going to cut right in there, and 2 13/16. That's it right there. Lock everything down, tighten this up. We're coming right in on the corner. We're 2 13/16 from there. There we go. Now I'm just going to check it's still tight. Yeah, still tight. Feel the chips every now and then, I guess. And there's a little pinch point right here between this support and this edge when it comes round. Oh, we have to go hunt for it. So, here's the first one. That's just over 4 inches, about 4 1/4 across. So, I don't think you could do much smaller than that, but that's that one. And now we just have to set up for this one, and that will give us 2 bowls. Okay, so loosen this, loosen this, loosen this. We know we have to come out a bit, and we know we have to go in some. There, we're on the corner there. Now, for this one, we want to be a 1 11/16 out from here. 11/16 is 5/8 and a 16th. It's got to be in a bit. Just round about there. And pretty close there. We're lined up on the edge here. Yeah, 11/16. 1 11/16. Yep. Tighten that up. Tighten that up. I think if this was mine, I'd need something a little better for tightening that. Some kind of knob or something there. That's very tough on your fingers. 1 11/16. So that should take us right down to this line here. Yeah, 4 inches looks to be right over that center point. We're just on the edge here. Away we go. 500. It's easy on the side grain when you start out. That's very nice. I forgot something. I think it's a good idea just to check your type each time. Wood compressors, especially wet wood. Just want a steady cut. ball. There's the first, there's the last. So I think it's working pretty good. A couple of observations, if it were mine, and I would like a longer handle, because I think you need a nice steady cut pull. So if you have a longer angle, it will kind of steady things down a little. Reading the little woodcut brochure, it recommends on hardwood that you have a negative angle on the end, and on softwood it's flat. So if you're always going to be doing wet wood, having it flat is fine. But if you have a mixture, you might want to look at buying 2 sets of knives, because you don't want to be regrinding these every time. That would be very wasteful of the material on the end there. So we'll just move this back out the way a little bit. Let's undo that. And I didn't read anywhere how you're supposed to take this out of here, so I found a big screwdriver. Works like that, just to break the fit. And I will show you something else that you can do if you want. But here you have 3 bowls from that little tree. Okay. Now you're going to want to have some way to hold this when you remount it. What I would do would just, I'll show you, I'll take this one out. There you can see it was very minimal tenon on this one, and you only need the same on these, but perhaps with my smaller set of jaws, and definitely with the smaller set of jaws on this one. Just need a very small tenon to be able to finish turning it. So an easy way to do that is just to put it either on the chuck, put a little center divot here with a, well, first we'll cut that off. Now probably just by eye is good enough for this. You just want to mark the center point, like so. So you can hold that with your live center, and just put whatever little tenon you want to hold this to turn this bowl. Similarly, for this one. And I tend to use this faceplate. It's just a piece of MDF with a faceplate on it, bolted to it, with a sanding disc, a rough abrasive sanding disc on it. I have that on the headstock. Put my bowl on it, bring the live center up, turn my whatever tenon I want, and what that allows me to do is move this around. If I find I'm cutting this side and not this side, I can just move it over a little bit. so I can position it to get the most bowl from it. Okay. This one, we still have a point here from when it was turned. So, be interesting to see these lines that I put on it coming out, showing how thick. Now, by feeling these, I can tell that they've stayed pretty parallel. I can do this. Oh yeah, very good. Yeah. See, that's about where I said the bottom would be. So that one stayed pretty parallel. Is there any other way I could show that? I put this down to the bottom and I put my thumb there. There. Yeah, see? I don't know if you can see it again. This edge is lining up with that first line. So it did a good job. It cut to the right depth, and that's a good bowl to dry now. There. So, little Bowlsaver did a good job. I don't think we need to put the new tips on. If we did a bigger bowl, then we'd have to turn this around, just undo these two bolts here, turn that around and put it so it's coming around here, and take this one and turn it upside down and put it so it's curved in there. You want to keep that cutting edge inside of this edge, because there are times when you go back like this and you have a bowl here and you don't want that cutting edge to be catching on the bowl. So just keep it inside of this edge and you'll be okay. Can you see that one? Yes, inside of this edge. And depending on the diameter, follow the guidelines. For diameters 8.5 to 10.5, use the large blade. Okay, 8.5 to 10.5. And for the small blade, this one that we use, it's for 5" to 8.5. So, I understand, haven't seen one, but that I think they've come out with a new one now that has a third knife in it. It's even bigger. I hope they've made this a little thicker and a little more robust, but I'm sure they have. But it's relatively easy to set up. You can see how it moves around on the banjo, and it does a good job. There it is. Tighten that up, give it back to the club, clean it off, and we'll save the tips, the new tips we got, for when these are really wore out. What they recommend is you use a little diamond card and just touch up that front edge just on an angle to refresh it, to keep it sharp. But don't be going on the sides and don't be going on the top, just up the front here. That's all you need to do. Okay, what to do with your bowls to dry them? I'll show you what I do. Now you may use anchor seal, or last time I went to buy some, the price had gone up so much, I looked around for what else I could use. And I found this paint here, which is a paint for sealing walls, sealing gyprock, etc. Called Wall Pro in Kent. It has PVA in it, which is what we use for wood glue, PVA glue. And so far it seems pretty good. So what do? This is what I do. Find a pencil with a bit of lead on it. On the side grain here, I write what kind of wood it is. In this case it's maple. And the year 2022. And I'll do the same on the side grain, the other side. And 2022. Now I sometimes put the month, February in this case. I don't have a lot of room on this small bowl. I don't think the month's really that important. What's important to me really is the species of wood is the most important thing. I'll do it here again too. M-A-P-L-E M-A-P-L-E. Okay. Now we've done that. Oh, where's my brush go? Flexible. I wrapped the bristles in saran wrap last time I used it. That would be a week ago. Still relatively soft. Now I leave the side grain, little windows on the side grain for it to breathe. That's what I tell myself anyway. And I cover the rest with this PVA paint. Now this is different to when I used to use anchor seal. When I used to use anchor seal, it didn't matter where I wrote it because the anchor seal would be clear. Okay. So, are we in camera? Yes. So here, I'll leave my little window for it to dry. This is what I tell myself, that the moisture can come out of that little window. I think it would come out no matter. I painted the whole thing, but I couldn't see through the paint what material it was maybe. So I do that, paint it like that. The whole idea here is that you want to slow down the water coming out of the wood, and to that end I also wrap it in plastic, which is going to slow down the evaporation of the water or the leaching of the water out of it, like that. That I throw in a paper bag. I use the big paper bags that are sold for putting your leaves in, and roll the top up and put it away and forget about it, really. I have one over there started last month, so we'll use that. We'll put them in there. Okay, same thing again here now. We find the side grain. You know, the side grain is, here we got the pith, here we got the side grain, right 90 degrees to it usually, unless you've got branches coming out or something. We'll write the material, M-A-P-L-E 2022. So, here we have 3 bowls to be put away for dry. That's cool. And we're lined up with the edge, that's it. Did something wrong here. I never locked up the chuck. I never checked if the chuck was tight. That's a blooper on my part. It didn't damage the tenon at all. It was just not tight, probably. Yeah. Running through, yeah. Oh. Well, there's one little bowl.